Hello, Epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Zander Sprague, and I'm so excited that you're joining me today. The thought of the day is, what do you do when the journey gets grindy? What do I mean by that? Well, grindy is sort of a term that I came up with when I was training for my marathons. And those days where I went out and I just couldn't find the right pace, or I just couldn't find my breath the right way. And just the whole run was just hard and kind of grindy. Another way to think of that is when you're on a bicycle and you change gears and it doesn't quite sit on the new sprocket the right way, so it sounds grindy. The chain, and that happens on our journeys. You're going along and all of a sudden it just seems so hard to get to the next step, or you're working so hard to try and find what you need to do. So when that happens, slow down for a moment, speed up a little, but just change your pace, and then you'll find that the grindy goes away. My epic update for today is about Michael Stockham. Michael was on my podcast, and the second in his 9-series legal thriller book just came out like 3 weeks ago and was Amazon bestseller in multiple categories. And it is so exciting to see someone who envisions something and makes it come true. Michael is an attorney, and he's been doing that. He's big shot attorney, but he'd always wanted to write a book, and he decided that he wanted to write a book, so he sat down and started doing it. He shared with me that he gets up at 4 a.m. so he has time to write his book every day. And it is so cool to see this success that he's having, that he had an epic dream and he went after it. I'm so excited to welcome Brian Hill to join me today to talk about AV, home AV, and home electronics. It is so exciting. So Brian, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us a little about yourself and how you got into this.
Okay, so like so many different people, I started by putting a TV on the wall. Mm-hmm. And when I put my first TV up on the wall in my house, it literally took me all weekend long. I started Saturday morning, I didn't get done till Sunday evening. And it was this whole ordeal, but it was a beginning. And then I added the AV receiver and the speakers, and then the AV receiver died and I had to put a new one in there. And I started learning about all of this kind of stuff, and pretty soon family started asking me about it. Friends started asking me about it. Hey, can you come over and take a look at it? Well, it kind of evolved from there into, hey, you know what? People do this for a living. So I started working nights and weekends, as a side gig, helping people out with, their TVs, with their sound systems, making VCRs, this was a while ago, making VCRs work with their system, getting their DVD players to work. People would buy a new AV receiver, they'd buy a new TV, they'd buy a new other component, and they wanted it to work with what they had. And they'd give me a call and I'd figure out how to make everything work together and talk to everything and get the right cables to go to the right ports and all that kind of stuff. And eventually my job went away, and here I am full time. I am licensed, bonded, insured, full C7 contractor in the state of California, which I think is important. There's a lot of guys out there who aren't licensed, bonded, and insured, but that's my own personal view on things. You learn a lot. And you learn it quickly. It's very much either win or I learn. Yeah. And sometimes those lessons get expensive.
Exactly. So when you started off, it's safe to say that you were dealing with analog, and now we have lots of digital.
Absolutely.
For you, how was that switch from doing the analog to doing, I'm going to guess, all digital, because there's not a whole lot of analog left?
Well, that switch came along with big screen TVs. Okay. So I'm old enough to remember, your 32-inch cabinet TV that you had there, right? The cat slept on top because it was hot, right?
Yeah. And it weighed 800 pounds and had a huge tube.
Oh my God. And you were the remote control.
Yeah.
Go change the channel. Okay.
Totally.
So, that's where my recollection starts.
Sure.
But what happened with large screen TVs is the larger the screens became, the more resolution was required in order to get a clear picture up on that screen.
Definitely.
So what happened was the analog, which is the old yellow was the video, and then you had the red and the white for the left or right and the left audio.
Yeah.
That was replaced by digital signals and an HDMI cable, which was a lot more simple. But what it did is it allowed the screen to have more resolution. So you've probably heard of a 1080 or a 4K TV, or even now 8K TVs, because they need to have that many pixels in order to fill the screen with a clear picture. In addition to the video format being larger, the sound format changed.
Yeah.
It went from left and right to surround sound.
Yeah.
And the digital signals that are being broadcast by broadcast TV or from your streaming service of your choice, now in addition to left and right, you also have left front, left rear, right rear, surround, height, oh my goodness, subwoofer. You've got all of these different channels. Each one of those channels now has its own digital signature within the signal that's being broadcast out. So that allowed us to go from a simple analog AV receiver that simulated surround sound to a true surround sound processing receiver that sent the signals to the individual channels to give you true surround sound.
Sure.
And if you're watching your favorite show, at night, and say it's a thriller, you hear a gunshot and it's off to the left of the screen and behind, all of a sudden your head goes like this because you heard that shot back here, which is real time with the show that you're watching, which added a large dimension of what you could experience just with regular broadcast TV or watching a movie.
Sure. So you mentioned that obviously we have, it seems to be increasing resolution, 1080p, 2K, 4K, now 8K. At what point is it so beyond real that you're like, that's just unpleasant to watch? I know in with some of the high definition stuff, some of the animated films and stuff, they've done it. They've done a great job of making it look realistic, and the test audience goes, I know I'm watching something animated, but you got to make it look not so real. It's too real. And I got to imagine 8K. I mean, holy moly, you're seeing inside the pores of people.
Well, you get that level of detail, but what happens now is anybody who's gone to any retail establishment that sells televisions has seen them get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The problem isn't as much getting the fine details, because you get that with 4K now.
Right.
I mean, in reality, if you're watching a football game, you can see blades of grass.
Sure.
You can see the sweat rolling down the guy's face.
Yeah.
You don't need any more detail than that.
Yeah.
What the higher 8K will mean is that it will fill a larger screen.
Okay.
So I was at a large box retail store recently, and right by the front door they have a 98-inch, which is diagonal, 98-inch screen for like $1,600. And it's like, oh my God, I can remember 5 years ago a 98-inch screen was 50 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, the size has increased, the cost has come down, everybody wants bigger, and you don't need bigger. But in order to do bigger, you need the higher resolution, because now you're spreading that same image across this enormous screen. And you need the higher resolution so that you don't start getting pixelation and blurry and like that on these giant screens. Give it another 5 years and we're going to be putting walls in our house that are nothing but TVs.
Right. So what you do is great. You come in and help people figure out their audio-visual needs. And as great as all of this stuff is, occasionally it doesn't quite work the way you'd like it. Your TV's glitching, the soundbar isn't turning on and stuff. But I know from my own experience of like, oh, it's not working, and I call for help. And it turns out that I probably could have fixed it myself. Do you have any like kind of tips for people, like before you call Brian, do these things? It's kind of like they always ask you in text, did you try rebooting the computer?
You know, as much as I hate that, that's number one on the list. I've got an article up on my website. It's like, do these 9 things before you call me, right? Because I'm expensive. Your time is free, right?
Yep.
So the very first thing is, does it have power?
Yeah.
Does your remote control that isn't working, are the batteries good? Did you plug it into the charger, right? To the next step, is the TV plugged in? Is your sound system plugged in? Is the sound bar on? Or did the dog get back there and step on it and flip it off?
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone like across the bay to someone because, oh my God, I checked everything and it just won't work and come fix it now. And I went over there and flicked their power strip on and everything came back to life. And simple things that you can do. Check your power.
Yeah.
While you're checking your power cycle things, right? Yeah. The first thing, if you call up one of the cable providers and ask for help, the first thing they're going to ask you is, did you turn it off? Did you turn it back on again?
Yeah.
Yes, I turned it off, turned it back on again. Unplug it, count to 10, plug it back in again. Yeah. Or turn that power strip off, count to 10, turn the power strip back on again.
Yeah.
Most of these devices that we have in our home for TV, etc., they're little tiny computers. Even your TV has a computer in it.
Absolutely.
Those computers need to be reset. And it's not a matter of just turning the switch off, but you actually have to power them off. And then you power them back on and they go through their reboot and they go through a process of commands that solve a lot of the problems that happen sometimes.
Definitely.
So that's always the first thing, is the power.
Yep.
After the power, then you start checking connections. You start checking wires. You start checking that, everything is working in the right sequence. Like a great example. I have a universal remote control. So I have one button I push, the TV comes on, my receiver comes on, my streaming box comes on, everything goes to the right channel, and boom, there it is, ready to go. When I hit the volume, my receiver turns the volume up and down. When I change the channel, my streaming box changes the channel. Everybody's happy. Every now and again, depending on what kind of remote control that you have, say you're using this, the Comcast remote that's been programmed to work with the different things. Yeah. Well, you hit the button and set it down. Well, the TV didn't get the same signal as the receiver did, or the cable box got, and now things are out of sequence. Yeah. So then you try turning it off, and half the things turn off, the other half of the things turn on, and then you try turning it on, and they turn off and turn back on, and nothing's going right. Right. So if that's an issue where things, it's like, it seems like it should, but it's backwards and it's just not on the same page, turn everything off. If you have to, manually go push the button, turn them off, get everything back to a starting state, and then try turning it back on. Yeah. You'd be amazed how many times that fixes the problem.
Absolutely. I mean, I know on my TV sometimes it's not changing. I'm trying to, go through and say, I want to watch Hulu or something, and it's just not moving over for me to get to Hulu, or it's super slow. And I'll admit there are times I'm impatient. I'm like, well, if you didn't do it right away, it must be broken, but I'll wait. But we all know when it's just not working the way it should. And the first thing I do is exactly that. I will press and hold the power button on the TV. If that's not working because it's, really just messed up, I go and I unplug it and I wait for that, 10 or 30 seconds. I plug it back in and you're right, most times it does fix it. You're right, there's complex systems that go in. Think about the fact that we can stream stuff on our TV. We don't, Wi-Fi, you have it. What's something else that people can do before, and again, I'm not trying to take business out of your pocket, however, I get that. We all feel kind of stupid when someone's like, your power strip's off, right? I know I had a job where I was working on a help desk, and these were really, I was in a financial institution, and these are really smart people. And honestly, more than 50% of the time, they're like, my system isn't working, and it's the monitor was off. But instead of going, yep, turn it on, and make them feel like an idiot, I would like sort of futz around under the desk. Even though I walked up and knew in 2 seconds that I didn't see the green light, that meant the monitor wasn't on. And I get that. There has to be some degree of like respect of, I will help you so you can learn, but don't be like, oh, sure, power strip. All right, that's $150, thank you, But it does happen. So what are other things that commonly happen that people might try themselves?
So I have a list that I go through in my mind, right? I always start with the power.
Sure.
Then I start
Good
with
place,
the right.
No power, no nothing.
And that's 50% of your problems are turn it off, turn it back on again. It fixes it. Then we start getting into signal. So if you think about how an AV receiver works, it's like a quarterback on a football team. It gets the signal from the sidelines, sends the play out to the other players. Everybody does their thing, and the play works.
Right.
In an AV system, you have to tell the AV receiver who you're listening to, right? So like you were saying, you go to Hulu, you go to your cable box, you go to your DVD player, right? Or your Blu-ray player.
Right.
You have to tell it what input to use. Sometimes you have to tell the television what input to use, right? Because you've got different things plugged into the side of it.
Yeah.
And occasionally you'll hit the button for the cable box and your Hulu's on. Or it's going to an input that doesn't have anything on it. And now you got a blank screen saying no input.
Yeah.
It happened to me just the other day where you push the button, but like you said, impatient. We all get impatient. I'd be lying if I said I never did it.
Sure.
You hit the button, you hit another button, it's like, hit a button and the stupid thing isn't working. Well, you hit one too many buttons and you flip to the next input.
Yeah.
So the TV's trying to get a signal from a port that doesn't have anything in it.
Exactly.
Or from a port that's got something plugged into it, but that something isn't turned on because you didn't tell it to turn on, right? So check your sources, right? Check your sources on your AV receiver if you have one. Check your sources on the TV if that's how things are plugged in. If it's a sound issue, right? But you've got the right picture, you don't have any sound. Well, now we've got to narrow it down to that half of the equation.
Right.
You could look at your connection to your sound bar. You could look at your connection to your AV receiver. You can make sure your AV receiver is on. You can make sure the sound bar is on. You can make sure that whatever device that you're using to produce your sound is on the right input, because once again, it needs to know what to listen to before it can send the sound out.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of just going through step by step, eliminating problems as you go down the list, and you start from the most common and you work down to the most obscure.
Exactly. Absolutely. And then obviously if you can't figure it out, there are people who do know and can help you. I've got a question for you, which is there's all kinds of smart devices in our home, and we can have the smart home. I haven't quite bought into all of that because I'm a little leery of like the lights and the microwave and the refrigerator, and I'm not sure I need my refrigerator to have Wi-Fi.
Not to mention she who shall not be named, listening into every conversation, waiting for her name to be mentioned.
That is, we will not say anything about that person
Yes.
who's listening.
That's correct.
And if we say it, then everyone who's watching's
Device is going to light up and say, how can I help you?
Exactly. But do you do any like troubleshooting for these smart home systems?
You know, I do. And if you think about it, to your point when you started that question, try counting how many things you have that are connected to your Wi-Fi. If you don't have like a smart router where you could go in and look at everything that's connected, you'd be amazed.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
In our home, it's myself, my wife, and my wife's daughter. And I think we have 50 or 60 different devices that are all connected to the internet.
And
it's insane.
If you're looking half the time, even though you see it's connected, you're like, I don't know what that is because it has some generic,
just an IP address or something.
Exactly. So you don't even know. Like, I don't know what that is. I can't identify with anyone.
But you're always a little leery to turn it off because you don't know what's going to stop working, right?
Exactly.
So, yes, I do play with smart home stuff. I have Hue lights in my home. I have a streaming music service throughout my home. We listen to a lot of music in our home. And the streaming speakers are really cool. There's 3 or 4 different brands that you could buy that do this. You could have everything connected together for your party mode, or you have one thing listening to, my wife's listening to something in her office. I'm listening to something else in my office. Or, we've got the main AV area outside, whatever it happens to be. I like a lot of the smart home things because they do work very seamlessly with the technology, right? You tell them, I want to listen to this music. It goes online, it finds the music, it streams it, it plays it, everything's fine. Leave it alone, go about your business.
Right.
The lights turn on when it gets dark. They turn off at 10:30 at night. It's cool. And basically, smart things for me allow me to automate processes within my home, right? Most people would have no trouble with a sprinkler controller telling the sprinklers to come on every other day.
Yeah.
Most people can extend that in their mind to having certain lights turn on and turn off based on the time of day. I start getting a little leery. I do not like she who shall not be named.
Yeah.
The smart TVs, while they're advertised as smart TVs, they have a small computer in them. They don't necessarily do that well. So televisions give us amazing pictures. They're horrible in producing sound. They are slow and clunky when it comes to streaming something because it's down, 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 over, up. Where's the back button, right?
Heaven help you if you have to put your password in again.
Oh, good Lord. And, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, numbers, right? Different keyboard. Not that one, that one, that one.
I hit the wrong button and now I can't see the words I'm putting in. So
it's crazy. There's actually a couple companies out there who are now selling televisions specifically to integrators like myself, where there's none of the bells and whistles. It is a monitor that you put up on the wall because that's all it's being used for. Right? We got the surround sound systems. We've got other devices streaming in there. I highly recommend streaming devices, be it Apple, be it Hulu, be it Roku, be it the Fire Stick, whatever it is, because those devices do just that.
Got it.
And they do it very well. Televisions produce amazing pictures. Sound bars, AV receivers and speakers produce amazing sound. Let the devices do what they're good at. Right? As far as smart TVs are concerned, I don't like the smart features on them. Personally, I use an Apple TV. I don't know if that's okay for me to say the name. But
it is.
They do an amazing job of streaming, right? And if you go to search something, as soon as you hit the search bar, my phone buzzes in my pocket and say, would you like to use the QWERTY keyboard? And I say, why, yes, I would. And you plug it in, boom, it's on the screen, hit OK, you're watching your show. It's amazing. Plus, you could add all of the different streaming services in there. It works amazingly well. As far as your refrigerator, your dishwasher, your stove, your coffee maker, right? All of these things are capable of going online. Each of them tend to have their own proprietary system, which doesn't like to talk to any of the other proprietary systems. So now you've got 743 different apps on your phone to try to keep track of. It's a waste of time and effort in my view.
Absolutely. Well, I will liken it to the old days when every cell phone had its own unique charger.
Oh, God.
And I don't know about you, but I got the box of Octopus, the 800 different charging things, and every time you had to you got a new phone, you had a new charger, and you had to go buy new stuff.
14 new cords.
Exactly. Brian, it has been great having you here. What is that? We were talking in the pre-interview. What is your dream for people when they sit down to watch their entertainment?
Well, I'll tell you, for me, I'm just like everybody else. I love to sit down, put my feet up, turn my brain off, right? Everybody should have that. And my vision for the world is that everybody has that. One push of the button, everything comes on, goes to where you want it to go. You turn your brain off and you chill. Lord knows we have enough going on all day long with work, with kids, with school, with whatever it is. We just need that hour or so just to turn our brains off and recharge internally so that we can make it through. And I think everybody deserves to have that.
That is awesome. I want to thank you so much for coming in. Such a wealth of information. It has been great to have you here. Dare I say, epic.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me, Zander. I appreciate it.
Of course. I want to remind everyone that if you're ready to begin your epic journey, go to epicbegins.com. You can find me on Instagram at epic_begins. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. Look, if you're looking for Zander Sprague, just Google me. You'll find me. I want to help you begin your epic journey today. And remember, epic choices lead to the epic life that you want.